I learned the truth about my family on Christmas Eve, the night my parents shoved a single suitcase into my hands and slammed the door behind me. My sister smirked in the porch light, whispering, "Let's see how you manage, Jasmine." I managed by shivering alone on a snowy bench, breath sharp, fingers burning. Then I saw her, a barefoot woman, face turning purple in the cold. I gave her my winter boots without thinking. An hour later, 19 black BMWs surrounded me, doors opening in perfect sync. The same woman stepped out, and what she said rewired everything I thought I knew. My name is Jasmine, and for most of my life I believe survival meant keeping quiet, working hard, and pretending the cracks in my family weren't widening beneath my feet. People saw the Hillsborough house, the glass staircase, the holiday cards staged like magazine spreads, and assumed we were lucky. But luck is a fragile thing when you're raised in a home where love is conditional and appearances are scripture. Growing up, I learned early that I was the daughter you glanced over. Talia sparkled. I was expected to applaud. She got the bigger birthday cakes, the louder praise, the unshakable certainty that she was the center of our world. I got the polite nods, the quiet reminders to be grateful. Even when I worked twice as hard, Gregory would tilt his head and say, "Try to match your sister's potential." Helen didn't correct him. She never did, so I poured everything into my job at the ad agency hours holidays. Before I continue the story, tell me first, where did you hear this from? Write it in the comments, because what happens next, most people won't believe. Pieces of myself I never got back because it was the only place where effort turned into something measurable. Until the morning it didn't. A restructuring email, a badge that stopped working, a small box with my desk plant rolling in the passenger seat, and a numbness that stayed with me on the 40-minute drive back to Hillsborough. I told myself it would be temporary, just a couple weeks, I'd said when I called my mother. Her voice sounded rushed, distracted, like she was already reaching to hang up. I should have heard the warning in that, but when you're used to being tolerated instead of welcomed, you cling to scraps. The house looked like a holiday commercial when I pulled into the driveway, lights glowing the kind of warmth you hope belongs to you, but the moment I stepped inside, the air shifted. Evan stood beside Talia with a hand on her waist like he'd been waiting for a front row seat. Gregory opened a bottle of champagne without looking my way. Helen adjusted the pearls at her neck like she needed something perfect to focus on. I told them I lost my job. Talia's eyebrows lifted, her phone subtly tilting toward me. Again she said loudly, making sure the caterers heard. That was the spark, but it wasn't the fire. Because beneath their rehearsed smiles, beneath Talia's glittering ring and Evan's smug nod, something was already in motion, quiet, deliberate, and aimed straight at me. And Christmas Eve was about to show me just how far my own family had planned to let me fall. I should have sensed that something was off the moment Gregory asked me to join them in the foyer. That was his corporate voice, the one he used when firing employees at his firm, not the voice of a father talking to a daughter who'd just lost her job. Talia slipped her phone into her palm, camera facing outward. Evan leaned against the banister with a smirk he didn't bother hiding. Helen hovered near the tree, pretending to straighten an ornament, her eyes fixed anywhere but on me. Gregory didn't ask me to sit. He'd just said my name the way someone reads a bill they don't want to pay. "Jasmine, we made some decisions earlier this year. It's time to be transparent." That word transparent hit like a cold blade. He explained it clinically, like presenting numbers in a meeting the family trust had been reassigned. All assets around 40 million were now placed solely in Talia's name. Irrevocable, he added as if proud of the vocabulary. "You're 32, capable of supporting yourself. It's time you learned." Independence. I stared at him, waiting for the punchline, some sign he wasn't serious, but he only pressed his lips together in that firm managerial way. Helen finally looked at me, but only for a second, like eye contact might shatter her. Talia's voice chimed in, sugary and poisonous. "It's honestly for your own good. You're unstable, Jasmine, always switching jobs, always stressed. Dad just wants to help you grow." Her thumb hovered near her phone screen. "Recording, of course." My throat tightened. "You disinherited me without even talking to me." "We didn't disinherit you," Helen whispered. "We just redistributed for the sake of Talia's lifestyle." I cut in. The silence that followed was confirmation. Evan laughed under his breath. "Come on, Jazz, don't make this dramatic." Gregory lifted a hand to silence me before I even spoke. "You have 20 minutes to gather what you need. Security will escort you tomorrow for the rest." The floor tilted. 32 years, and that was it. A closed file. I walked upstairs in a daze, passing framed photos of Talia winning pageants, graduating, posing with trophies. There were none of me, not one. I paused at my bedroom door. The room I'd painted myself at 16. The room that still smelled faintly like the lavender candles I used to hide under my bed. I packed jeans, sweaters, toiletries, and the laptop that held 6 years of late-night work. Everything else stayed behind. When I came down, Talia was live streaming, narrating like she was hosting a reality show. And here comes Big Sis with her sad little suitcase. The front door opened, the cold rushed in, and as I stepped out into the freezing night, suitcase wheels clicking on marble, I felt something break so cleanly inside me it almost sounded like truth. The cold swallowed me the second the door clicked shut behind me. One soft, expensive click, an ending disguised as courtesy. I stood on the marble steps, breath fogging the air, my fingers numb around the suitcase handle. Somewhere inside, laughter rose from the dining room. A cork popped, silverware clink-egged against china. My family was celebrating while I tried to remember how to breathe. I started walking because standing still felt like giving up. The houses on our street glowed with warm light, silhouettes of families moving behind windows like scenes from a catalogue. Mine had never felt like that, but seeing it from the outside made the loneliness sharper. Snow drifted across the pavement, settling on my hair, melting against my skin. By the time I reached the small public garden near the old church, my legs shook from cold and exhaustion. I sat on the iron bench beneath a flickering lamppost and let the tears come. Not loud, not dramatic, just steady, tired grief. I cried for all the years I'd tried to earn a place that was never meant for me. I cried because losing my job felt survivable, but losing the illusion of family felt like a wound that wouldn't stop bleeding. I don't know how long I sat there before I heard the soft scrape of bare feet on concrete. I looked up. An elderly woman moved toward me, shoulders hunched against the wind, her thin socks soaked through. Her face had a bluish tint, the alarming kind you learn to recognize from winter safety PSAs. "Do you know if any shelters still take people this late?" she asked, voice shaking. Something inside me snapped into place. Instinct maybe, or a memory of watching someone else shiver while no one helped. "I don't," I whispered. "But here, please." I pulled off, the only thing keeping my feet warm, my winter boots. I held them out. She resisted for a second, then took them with trembling hands. "You shouldn't," she murmured. "I know," I said, "but you're colder than I am." She squeezed my hands once before walking away, disappearing into the fog like a ghost with somewhere to be. Giving up those boots should have made everything worse. Instead, a strange calm settled over me. I'd lost so much already. What difference did one more thing make if it kept someone else alive? Later, in a motel room that smelled like old cigarettes and pine disinfectant, I scrolled job listings with burning eyes. My phone buzzed with a number I didn't know. When I hesitated, it rang again. A crisp voice said, "Miss Jasmine, Mrs. Evelyn Callahan would like to meet you immediately. A car is waiting." I laughed, thinking it was a scam. Then I looked outside. 19 identical black BMWs idled in the parking lot, and I felt the night shift under my feet. The rear door of the middle BMW eased open, and the last person I expected stepped out, the barefoot woman from the bench, except she wasn't shivering or grey-faced anymore. She wore a belted camel coat, her silver hair swept into a flawless low twist, diamonds flickering at her wrist. "Jasmine," she said like she'd known my name long before tonight. "Come inside." Her voice was warm, steady, nothing like the fragile whisper she'd used in the snow. I slid into the back seat, the door shut with a soft thud. The convoy gliding into motion as a divider rose, sealing us in a quiet, dim cocoon. "You're wondering who I am," she said. "That's one way to put it." She smiled. "My full name is Evelyn Callahan. I oversee a philanthropic foundation in Atherton. And every Christmas Eve I leave my estate with nothing, no wallet, no phone, no security. I walk until I find someone who chooses kindness when they have nothing left." My throat went tight. So tonight was a test. "It was a truth," she said softly, "and you passed it without hesitation." The car turned down a secluded street lined with towering redwoods. A wrought iron gate opened silently, revealing a sprawling Tudor home bathed in warm light. I'd lived near here my entire life and never knew this place existed. Inside, the air smelled of cedar and roses. A fire crackled in a stone hearth. Everything felt impossibly elegant yet strangely peaceful. Evelyn motioned for me to sit on a cream sofa. "You lost your job this morning," she said. "Your family abandoned you tonight, and when you were frozen, exhausted and humiliated, you still gave away the last thing protecting you from the cold." She touched the boots beside her. "Do you know how rare that is?" I swallowed. "You had people watching me. My team observed you from afar." She said they saw you check into a motel with cash, apply for dozens of jobs, cry in the shower. Not once did you call your family or try to track me down for recognition. Heat rose in my face. Why me? Because I have no heirs, she said, and I am tired of letting strangers decide the fate of what my husband and I built. I want someone who knows what it feels like to be invisible. Someone who gives not out of abundance but out of truth. Her eyes softened. I'm offering you a room here, a salary and a 5-year apprenticeship. If at the end you are still the woman I believe you are, you will run the foundation. The air stalled in my lungs. You're serious? She nodded completely. But what if I fail? You won't, she said. Because people who give when they have nothing rarely do. I didn't trust my voice, so I just nodded. Come, she said, your new life begins now. Everything after that felt like stepping into someone else's story. On Monday, I moved into the East Wing. My room overlooked a rose garden, sunlight warming the floors. Grace O'Neill, tall, sharp, endlessly composed, handed me a thick leather binder labeled Orientation Boot Camp, she said. Hope you're ready. The next month nearly broke me. At dawn, I ran around the lake with a former military trainer who didn't understand the concept of mercy. At breakfast, Evelyn grilled me on budget's outcomes and the difference between good intentions and real change. During the day, I sat through meetings in the Foundation's downtown office rooms full of donors debating how to turn millions into impact instead of ego. At night, I read through years of grants, bills, payments, community reports, handwritten letters from families rebuilding their lives. I wasn't just learning a job, I was learning responsibility, the kind that sits on your shoulders and demands your best every day. There were mornings I cried quietly before meetings. Evenings I fell asleep on spreadsheets. But every time I doubted myself, I remembered the cold bench, the closed door, the moment my family turned me into a stranger, and I kept going. By early summer, Evelyn called me into the library. Sunlight filtered through stained glass onto a single folder placed neatly at the table's center. Open it, she said. Inside was an employment contract, title President and Chief Executive Officer of the Callahan Foundation, a salary I'd never imagined, authority I had never believed could belong to someone like me. I didn't choose you because of the boots, she said. I chose you because you work harder than anyone, because you carry heartbreak without passing it down, because you show up with integrity even when no one is watching. Emotion burned behind my eyes. I don't know what to say. Say yes, she murmured. I signed. At night we shared a quiet toast on the terrace as the sun dipped behind the redwoods. I felt anchored, seen steady for the first time in years, but life has a way of circling back. It happened one crisp fall morning in my corner office in San Francisco. Grace knocked once. They're here, she said. Your parents and Talia, no appointment. My pulse thudded. Send them in, they look different. Smaller, older, gone with the designer outfits. Talia wore a plain sweater, her mascara smudged. Gregory's hair was nearly white. Helen clutched a cheap purse, her hands shaking. Talia spoke first. We're sorry, Jasmine, we were awful, we know that, she swallowed. Dad's investments collapsed. We lost the house. Evan left, we need help, maybe 2 million just to start over. 2 million, said so lightly. What happened to the trust? I asked, her eyes filled. Crypto, some deals Evan swore would triple. It's gone, I exhaled. I'm sorry for your situation, I said softly. But this foundation helps people who never had. Safety net, not those who burn theirs by choice. Gregory bristled. We're your family, I know, I said, but family doesn't erase accountability. I slid 3 business cards across the table. Financial recovery debt, management counseling support. This is what we offer everyone, including you. Talia's face collapsed. You're really not giving us anything. No, I said, because I finally know the difference between saving someone and enabling them, Helen whispered. We're sorry. And for once I believed her. Security walked them out. Grace lingered by the doorway. Are you okay? I watched the city stretch beneath the glass. Yes, I said for the first time. Yes, in the weeks after they left my office, something inside me settled. Not triumph, not bitterness, just a steady, grounded calm. The kind that comes when a long-infected wound finally drains clean. I didn't check their social media. I didn't ask Grace for updates. For once in my life, my family wasn't center of my decisions or my grief. I woke early, ran around the lake, reviewed programs, met with community partners, and felt my days fill with purpose rather than survival. Evelyn watched me with a quiet pride she rarely voiced. Some evenings we'd sit in her garden wrapped in blankets, sipping tea as she asked about policy ideas or the families we hoped to support next. You've grown into your spine, she said once, brushing a leaf from my shoulder. Not harder, just clearer. Word of the trust disaster and the failed investments reached me in fragments, an article here, a whispered comment there. My parents had moved into a small apartment in San Jose. Talia was working part-time, attending counseling, trying to rebuild what she'd helped destroy. None of it brought me joy and none of it brought me pain. It's simply I was. The consequences they faced weren't revenge, they were reality finally catching up. What mattered more was the work. We broke ground on a new housing initiative, we streamlined emergency grants. Families who once slept in cars now had keys to front doors. Children who'd whispered in fear now laughed in hallways painted sunflower yellow. One night as I locked the foundation office, I caught my reflection in the glass, tired, stronger, certain. I realized I no longer carried the weight of proving myself. I had already become the version of me I once needed. The day we opened Second Home, the plaza buzzed with families, volunteers, donors, and kids racing between planter boxes like they already belong there. As the ribbon fluttered in the breeze, I stepped to the podium and looked out at hundreds of faces, some hopeful, some exhausted, all searching for steadiness. I thought of the girl I'd been on that frozen bench, shaking, discarded, convinced she had no future left to claim. So I told the crowd what I wish someone had told me back then. You are not disposable. You are not defined by who failed to love you. You are defined by who you choose to become when the door closes and no one is looking. When the applause rose, I felt something settle inside me, light, whole, unburdened. If this story touched you, share your thoughts in the comments and subscribe for the next chapter.